My fair citizens, Sodium City, the moment you have all been waiting for is here. Finally. I am bringing to you a huge, massive, long, throbbing, girthy set review. Just kidding. It's not fucking any of that shit. All right, so basically we just took all of the cards that I felt were notable and the ones that I was actually going to make a deck out of. Everything that seemed necessary that we should have and we need to make giant memes out of. You know what else is a giant meme? Me asking you to subscribe. I mean, you should already be subscribed, so just end the giant meme because it's a stupid fucking meme. Just subscribe already. So if you like giant memes, then obviously you're gonna love this video. The first card we are going to start out with is going to be Aetherflux Reservoir. So since I did not play in the Kaladesh block, I guess this was one of the staples. People hated this card / loved this card. So it's a 4 colorless artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you cast this turn. Then you can pay 50 life and it deals 50 damage to any target. So this is kind of cool because it's kind of like a storm counter. So the more you cast it, the more life you get. So the first spell you cast, you get 1 life. Second spell, you get 2 life. Third spell, you get 3 life. So it just compounds and it gets very, 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 very good. So basically, if you can cast somehow 8 spells in 1 turn when you are at 20 life, you have 56 life at that point, and then you can pay 50 life and just kill the opponent. However, that is really fucking boring. Nobody actually wants to see that. I mean, some people may want to see it. You'll just use like Song of Creation, play a bunch of 0 mana spells, draw a bunch of cards and just keep doing it, gain a bunch of life and do it. And yeah, that is kind of cool, and you can, I mean, but it's something a lot of people are going to be doing, and it doesn't have any unique like oomph to it. It doesn't have personality. It's just one of those things. It's like think of Treasure Hunt. You know, you play 4 Treasure Hunts, you play Mystic Sanctuary, and you play that 1 Tesa's Oracle, and that's it, right? It's boring. Yeah, it's a cool interaction. It does things. It wins you games. It's just a combo that wins. It does all that stuff, but it's just like bleh, right? And so nobody actually wants to see that, obviously, and I know you guys don't want to see it. I don't even want to play it. You guys don't want to see that. The Twitch doesn't want to see it. Nobody fucking wants to see it. Nobody cares. So what I want to do personally, I want to do Revival Revenge. So Revival Revenge, if you're new to the channel, it's one of my favorite cards of all time. It was the first deck that actually, I guess, put me on the map. I don't even know if you would say that. It's stupid. It was the one deck. It was the first deck that actually performed really well across the board. So like people that were actually good at the game were able to play it and easily perform very well with it in Mythic. There was a lot of people that used it to climb to Mythic. There was a lot of people that never, they were like bronze and silver, and they climbed to Mythic using that deck. That's how good it was. That's all in the past though. Basically, Revival Revenge, you're going to double your life and half your opponent's life. So you do this twice, and then you pay 50 life and deal 50 damage to the opponent. It seems boring, it seems basic, but it's a super fun card, and we're gonna do it in an interesting and fun way. Somehow, I don't know, obviously, the exact cards that we're gonna put in this deck, but that's going to be the core of the deck. We're gonna use Aetherflux Reservoir with Revival Revenge. So obviously it has to be at least black and white. I don't know if I'm gonna add any other colors. I feel like the more colors we add, the muddier the deck will be. So we may just keep it at Orzhov, but I have no idea. I'm not sure if we are going to add more or not. So we'll think about it, and we'll just kind of go from there. We'll see how well it performs. Card number 2 that we're going to go over is Ajani's Unyielding. So this is a very interesting planeswalker. It seems like it's going to be very bad. It actually kind of borderlines on unplayable, mainly because it's a 6-mana planeswalker that comes in for 4 loyalty, which obviously is horrible. It's horrible. It does have a +2, which makes it technically come in with the 6-pack. So obviously Ajani goes to the gym, but for 6 mana, it's fucking atrocious, right? So his +2 is reveal the top 3 cards of your library, put all non-land permanent cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest of the bottom of your library. So you got to keep in mind this is permanents only, but it is also non-land permanents. So this is not going to work with any type of spells. So this will primarily, since the colors are green and white, you're going to most likely be using like Gift of Paradise, you're going to be using Wolf Willowhaven for a lot of ramp. But obviously with the ultimate, which we'll go over later, we're going to be using a lot of different planeswalkers. So his -2 is exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Now, most likely we'll be using this on the opponent's creatures, but in a pinch we could use this on ours. It also depends on how we want to build the deck. Who knows, maybe we have Olimog in the deck and we exile our own Olimog and gain 10 life. Who knows? I mean, if you have Olimog on the board and you're swinging, you probably don't need to gain the life unless you have a backup Olimog and you do need to gain the life. Whatever. There's a lot of different circumstances to where you can, like 5-head or big brain a situation to where you need to gain that little bit of extra life, but who knows? It is one of those things. It's a planeswalker that comes into play, has 6 loyalty, but you can kind of protect itself by doing the -2 and exiling a creature. It just kind of depends on what all he has on the battle, or what all your opponent has on the battlefield. So the biggest one that we're really using it for, the meat and potatoes, right, is going to be the -9, which again is very expensive. So comes in with 4, adds +2, 6, has to live for 1 more turn. That's 7. 1 more turn. Wait, 6, that's 7. 6 + 2 = 8. And then it goes up to 10, which is another turn. So basically he has to live for 3 turns. And then on the 4th turn, you can ultimate him. -9. Put 5 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control and 5 loyalty counters on each other planeswalker you control. Obviously, you know that we're going to be doing a Super Friends deck out of this. And I'm sure everyone kind of knows that Super Friends is the way to go with an Ajani, this Ajani Unyielding planeswalker, just in general. They also have Oath of Ajani, which is a green-white that planeswalker spells cost 1 colorless less to cast, which is also really good. So running a 5-color planeswalker deck will be a little bit easier in those circumstances. However, you also have Eerie Ultimatum. So Eerie Ultimatum, basically when you cast it, you can return 1 of any permanent, or you can return all permanents with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's 7 mana, it's really difficult to cast, but if you're running like 5-color Super Friends, you can run, Chromatic Lantern, you can run Skyclave Relic, Gift of Paradise, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the Ajani Unyielding's +2 ability. So you're able to dig for your ramp with Ajani's Unyielding. If you don't already get it already by turn 6, you're probably dead anyway, in theory. But for whatever reason, then you end up getting all your planeswalkers in the graveyard somehow. We don't know how yet. We haven't thought of all that stuff yet. But I'm going to put them into the graveyard either using like a Tameo, using a Jace. Not Jace. Yes, Jace. No. Teferi. Jace, Teferi. One of the two. One of the blue planeswalkers. Just there's so many different things that you can do. Narset can also help with it. There's just, again, there's so many things that you can do. Get a bunch of planeswalkers in the graveyard, bring them all back with Eerie Ultimatum. Then what you can also do, there's a couple things you can do in this scenario. You can cast Elder Spell, blow up a bunch of planeswalkers, ultimate your Ajani, put 5 counters on everything, right? You minus your Tamiyo, if you bring Tamiyo back, you get back your Eerie Ultimatum. You cast Eerie Ultimatum for free with an Omniscience on the battlefield that you got back from Eerie Ultimatum the first time you cast it. It's just, there's so many stupid things that you can do. There's so much potential. I mean, you guys have seen the channel before, or a lot of you have, where you've gone back and you've looked at these decks that I've built and you've seen the games and you're like, there's no way this works. But then you actually watch the games, you look at the records of the decks and you're like, how does this even work 50% of the time? You know, and the fact that a lot of these stupid ideas like this stupid shit works 50% of the time is ridiculous. So if we're running, you know, this Ajani Unyielding with Oath of Ajani, Omniscience, Baby Elder Spell, Tamiyo, Eerie Ultimatum, and then like every other Planeswalker that we want to ultimate, we can just do that. There's just so much potential in there for so much shenanigans. I am really excited about this card. I feel like it has so much rage-inducing things built into it. I can't wait. I can't wait to get my hands on this card. I just can't wait. Can't wait. For card number 3, we have Authority of the Councils. Now, you may think, Strider, this is just a regular card, like a support card. Why do you want to feature this one? I'll tell you, my fair citizens of Sodium City. Because this is going to go in a lot of my prison decks. Because, especially in Historic, there's so many aggro decks, especially when a new season comes out. I feel like this card is going to be a staple in almost every single control deck, especially any prison deck that runs white. So any land destruction deck, almost anything. Seriously, almost any control deck, period, actually. So if you don't know what it is, it's a 1 white mana enchantment. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So this is amazing because it stops all hasties. The only thing that this doesn't hurt are flash creatures, which is the most... This is exactly why I hate mono blue flash. Anybody who knows me knows I fucking hate mono blue flash. Mono blue tempo, all that, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. So, putting all that aside, the other part of this enchantment is whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain a life. So this is also fantastic. So not only are you preventing them from attacking for a turn, you are also gaining life every time they play a creature. Now, if they're not like aggro, and again, this is primarily in best of 1. So if they're not playing aggro, this can be a dead card. We all know this because there's always a dead card in a best of 1 deck. Now, how do we get rid of this dead card since it's a turn 1 play? I don't know yet, but we'll have to figure it out. It's something that we'll have to figure it out. So if you have any ideas, definitely make sure you let me know in the comments section below. That is something I'm really interested to know if you have any ideas. Because like if we're in a best of 1 and we go first and I have a white source and I have Authority of the Councils out, I'm going to white source. I'm just 100% of the time I'm going to do it. And it turns out they're like a blue-white control deck. What do I do with this? I basically just let it sit there and do nothing. Is there anything that I can do with it that makes it useful at that point? Is there anything in Kaladesh that I can do that changes the way it works? Or can I sacrifice it to make it do something better? I know there's a lot of things in Kaladesh that interacts with artifacts, but there's almost nothing that does anything with enchantments. So possibly something that's currently in Magic Arena that can interact with that in a positive way that can make a prison deck or land destruction deck better, or is it just always going to be a dead card in a control matchup? That's what we have to figure out. But other than that, again, I think it's going to be a staple card against every aggro deck. At the beginning of a season, it's going to be a 4 of in every single deck that I play. I can almost guarantee it. So I am Unfortunately, it will take up a slot in like every single deck, but I think it'll be worth it. I really, really do. For card number 4, this is one of the cards that everyone is like freaking out about. Everyone says it's the best Chandra. It is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. 4 loyalty coming into play for 4 mana. This is actually very important. So 4 mana for 4 loyalty is usually very good. It's kind of a standard right now. She has 2+1 abilities, which is also very important. So the first +1 ability that we're going to go over is the exile the top card of your library. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra, Torch of Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent. Now, this is a lot like the 4 mana Chandra that we already have in Magic Arena, where you can exile the top card of your library and play it, but if you don't, it just gets exiled. So you don't actually do anything outside of that. So already, right off the bat, it's so much better. The other side of it is that she has an additional +1 that's just add double red, which is also fantastic. So obviously, a lot of times when you drop a 4 mana Planeswalker on turn 4, you're not going to be able to, you don't have enough mana to play another card. So exiling the top card of your library is not a good thing. But you obviously want to increase the loyalty count because you don't want her to just sit there and not ultimate or anything, right? So you're going to be able to +1 just add 2 red, possibly cast something, whether it's just a Mind Stone or an whatever it is for like 2 mana, a stomp, whatever it is, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't restrict you to spells, abilities, creatures. It doesn't restrict you at all. It's just 2 red, which is fantastic. This also is essentially 2 mana ramp. It's kind of like a Hedron Archive, except for instead of it being 2 colorless, it's 2 red. But it's also pseudo card draw. Then she also has the -3 of it dealing 4 damage to target creature, which can also be very good. So she does protect herself earlier on in the game. Again, she costs 4 mana. So doing 4 damage to a creature that early on in the game is usually enough. It's almost always enough that early on in the game. Her ultimate, the -7, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to any target. And again, this is a spell. Any spell. It can be instant, sorcery, artifact, creature, planeswalker, any spell. So this alone, it's so powerful. This is probably the most powerful Chandra that we have in the game right now. And I have no idea. There's so many things that we can do with this. So one of the first things, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is land destruction. So turn 4, you can play Chandra. I mean, technically turn 3. So like turn 2 Mind Stone, turn 3 Chandra, turn 4, you get to play Haphazard Bombardment. And it's pretty consistent, right? There's just so many things you can do. And the fact that she's also pseudo card draw, you just consistently get the gas. And then if you -7, she's also has a built-in win condition. It's like, there's so many good things. This card is so busted. I am probably overhyping this card more than I should be, but I have so many high hopes for this card. Just being able to do 2 damage to the opponent, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it can be enough. And then as you keep +1ing her until you -7, again, the fact that you can even do that to begin with, and then doing 5 damage to face anytime you cast a spell, being it's just, you cast a Mind Stone, you're doing 5 damage to their face, you're like, okay, whatever. So this can also be good with something stupid like Fiery Emancipation or whatever it is. Once you get to later on in the game, once you alter and you get the emblem, you can cast Star of Extinction. Every time you cast Star of Extinction, you blow up a land, deal 20 damage to everything, and then deal 5 damage to their face. Again, this is a phenomenal card. I have so many bad ideas with this card, but that is the primary thing that I want to do. It's what I want to do right off the bat, is this. So I can't fucking wait to get my hands on Chandra. That sounds a lot worse than it did in my head. Whatever, we're going with it. We're keeping it in. We're keeping it in. Card number 5 on this list. Combustible Gearhulk. I mean, it seems... I know that a lot of you people are just like, come on, of all the Gearhulks, Combustible Gearhulk. I know, I understand. But Combustible Gearhulk. It's so funny. So it's a 6/6 first strike. It's kind of whatever. A lot of people are just like, it's underwhelming. It's 6/6 first strike for 6 mana. It's expensive. It's just a creature, right? When it enters the battlefield, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, you mill 3 cards. Then Combustible Gearhulk deals damage to that player equal to the converted mana cost of those cards. So there's a couple things we can do here. Now, I don't exactly know, but we can scry the top 3 cards somehow, or get 3 really expensive cards to the top of our library somehow. Or we can use Fiery Emancipation to triple the damage, or we can use Lithoform Engine to copy that triggered ability to either double the damage or have them choose to have us draw 3 cards twice or mill 3 cards twice, right? So there's a lot of interesting, just the more I think about it, it's just, it could be so weird. It could have a lot of potential in one of the giant teamer decks that I do, with like Fiery Emancipation, the worm decks with all the worms, throw in blue for the scrying, because you throw in Sifter Worm in here, you get to scry the top 3, and then you reveal the top card and you gain life based on how much the CMC is. So this is almost like the same thing, and then you're either forcing them to have you draw that really expensive card because they're going to keep an expensive card on the top, obviously. They either let you draw that card, although you're probably not going to do it till next turn anyway. So I mean, I don't know. There's so many weird ideas that you can do with it, but there's definitely ways to scry 3, keep the expensive shit on top, or with the Cavalier, the blue Cavalier, you can put expensive cards from your hand onto the top of the library, right? And then from there, you can play your Gearhulk. And then it just kind of goes from there. Because if they have you draw 3 cards, that's always fantastic, right? Drawing 3 cards is good. Drawing 3 cards is great. But a lot of people, they're just going to take the damage. It's kind of like a risk factor. The card, not me just saying it's a risk factor. The card risk factor. It's a lot like that, but it's like a higher probability of them like not really taking any damage. However, if you have Fiery Emancipation out, it's possible that they just die. Because if you have expensive cards like Fiery Emancipation or like other Gearhulks or any other card that's like 5 or 6 converted mana cost, if they're taking triple the damage from Fiery Emancipation, they're doing 15 damage from one card that's 5 CMC. If you mill a Gearhulk, they're taking 18 damage from one card. And then all you need is like a Gravedigger's Cage and they're dead. It's like, it could be anything, right? And so it has so much stupid potential that could be really funny. And again, with Lithoform Engine, you can either copy the trigger or copy the damage from that trigger, depending on what you want to do. So it's just, there's so many stupid fun things that I think you could do with it. And I'm definitely going to mess around with them. Definitely going to mess around with it. It seems like it's going to be really fun. So obviously stay tuned for that one. Card number 6. Probably the most important card of this whole set. Everyone's waiting for it. Everyone. I mean, obviously it's the best card in the whole block. Creeping Mold. destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land, 4-mana sorcery. Obviously, I'm super excited about it. Probably, I mean, it's just green, so you don't have to go into red, which is very, very rare for land destruction. The only other destroy target land card that we have that's not in red is in black, which is 5 mana, and the opponent also loses 2 life. It's a horrible card. I never recommend anyone use it, but Creeping Mold, however, you destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. So this is amazing because you also get enchantment hate, which is very, very good because there's still a lot of enchantments going around. There's a shit ton of artifacts all over the place. And of course, destroying lands is phenomenal. The reason I'm so excited about this is because Golgari has been more and more of a powerhouse the more I play it. The thing is that it just doesn't have enough land destruction. The only thing that you really get is going to be Casualties of War, and then of course you have, if you want to be really, I guess, cheeky about it, you can get the Assassin's Trophy and just keep Assassin's Trophy their land until they have no basics. The thing that sucks about that is that there's so many monocolor decks out right now that it doesn't matter really what you're doing, is you're thinning out their decks, so all they do is they draw gas and they just end up killing you because you can't deal with it in time, right? So having this in a green deck, that so you don't have to run red or land destruction, is amazing. The fact that you can just run this, Casualties of War, and then just a crazy amount of recursion being like Underrealm Lich with Gaia's Blessing, just to consistently just shuffle everything back into your library is, I have very, very high hopes for this deck. I don't think there's anything that's going to stop it. I think it's going to be one of the best land destruction decks I've ever made. I don't see very much of anybody stopping this deck from just being a giant house. There's so many good cards in black and green right now. It's just going to be extremely difficult to deal with. So if I go up against you on the ladder with this deck that's coming up in the future, I'm sorry, but also fucking it's gonna be great. So I hope you enjoy the content whenever we get our hands on Creeping Mold. You guys are gonna love it just as much as I do. Obviously, if you throw in red, it can be great. It's a better version of Demolish, again, because you do get to hit enchantments, and that's the big thing that red is missing, is that you can't do anything about enchantments. The same thing with black. Can't do anything with enchantments unless you're splashing green for Casualties of War, which it's just so expensive that later on in the game, sometimes it's just too late. Or if you only have those 4 cards being Casualties of War, it's obviously you only have 4 cards in the 60. If you already casted a couple, then you're just, at that point, you're so far behind, you don't know when you're going to get it. It's hard to, you have no idea. So adding the additional 4 cards that can destroy lands or kill those enchantments that are hurting you more than anything else, it just elevates the potential of the deck infinitely. So maybe not infinitely, but enough to where it's going to be extremely powerful. So I'm going to enjoy this a lot. It's probably my favorite card in the remastered set for Kaladesh right now. Maybe Chandra, but Creeping Mold is right up there for sure, for sure. Card number 7, probably going to be the most difficult envisioned combo that we have for a card in the Kaladesh remastered set. So, Dark Intimations. This is a 5 mana, so it's 2 colorless, blue, black, red Grixis card. Opponent sacrifices a creature, planeswalker, we don't care about. Opponent discards a card, we don't care about. You return a creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand, we don't really care about, unless it's the 5 mana Bolus, which we'll go over in a minute. And draw a card, we don't care about, unless we draw that 5 mana Bolus. We don't really care about any of that shit. Yeah, it's all great, whatever, it's icing on the cake. But the last part we care about is when you cast a Bolus Planeswalker spell exile Dark Intimations from your graveyard. That planeswalker enters the battlefield with an additional loyalty counter on it. Now, if you have all 4 Dark Intimations in your graveyard, you exile all 4 of those, and you put 4 loyalty counters on the Bolas planeswalker. So if you cast the 5 mana Bolas, you add 4 loyalty counters on it. That makes him an 8 loyalty counter Bolas. You instantly ult Bolas and you win, as long as they don't have any, legendary creatures or planeswalkers. This could be hilarious, although the chances of you having all 4 of the Dark Intimations in the graveyard is borderline 0. It's going to be extremely difficult to do. However, that is the envisioned combo. I don't know how to do it yet, but we have to figure it out. I just have absolutely no idea how to do it. So if you know a way to get Dark Intimations into the graveyard, all 4 of them, obviously without casting them and drawing them, please let me know in the comment section below. This could be the funniest combo ever. It could be so freaking hilarious if we were just getting them all in the graveyard. Opponent's like, what's going on? They're just putting all these really good cards in the graveyard. And then we just throw down Bolas 5, instant ult, and they just cry. Instant tear. Instant tear. Okay, card number 8. Card number 8. All right, hear me out. It's Fateful Showdown. Okay? It's 2 colorless, double red, instant. You're gonna think I'm crazy, okay? It's better than it looks. Trust me. Okay, don't trust me, but it's better than it looks. So if you've seen the videos in the most recent past, we've done a lot of Omniscience and Seagate Restoration decks. So we'll cast Omniscience and then we'll draw a ton of cards with Seagates. So Seagate Restoration, you draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1. So you just draw a bunch of cards. Again, we're doing it for free because Omniscience is out. We get a bunch of cards in our hand. We end up getting Jace from sideboard, putting him into play, and then, drawing out the rest of our deck. So that gets kind of boring, right? Who wants to just play Jace? Who wants to play Tace's Oracle all the time? Like, it's kind of an anticlimactic, lame way of winning, right? Nobody wants to win. So what we want to do, now we have an extra way of winning. We have Fateful Showdown. The best part about this is that it's an instant. We'll go over why. So, Fateful Showdown. It deals damage to any target, including face, equal to the number of cards in your hand. Discard all the cards in your hand. Draw that many cards. So, I'm actually not sure 100% if this works or not, but if it does, hilarious. So, what you do, you draw a bunch of cards. You're not dead yet, right? You still have a bunch of cards. Everything's good. Opponent's like, fuck, I'm dead, but this is a cool deck, whatever's going on. And you just say, go. You pass to them, and they're like, oh, did their combo fuck up or what? They're all confused or whatever. They do some shit. End of their turn, you're like, Fateful Showdown. You just smash them in the face for like 50 or something like that. So you just have an insane amount of cards in your hand. So that's the theory behind it. It should work. It's pretty funny. The thing is that when you discard all the cards in your hand and then draw that many cards, see, I'm not sure if they die before the rest of that stuff goes off. So if you do the damage, discard, and then draw that many cards, do they die first? That's the question. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it yet. I'm pretty sure they still die before you draw the cards, but I'm not 1,000% sure. I'm like 100% sure, but I'm not 1,000% sure. So if you know, let me know in the comment section below, because I'm actually really interested to know about that. 9th card on the list, we have Indomitable Creativity. So we're actually going to get really creative with this. Surprisingly creative. So this is a X triple red, destroy, it's a sorcery, destroy X target artifacts and or creatures. Now, the fact that it is a destroy target creatures in red is amazing. amazing, amazing, amazing. Because I don't think it's not in Arena. I don't know if it's in any other red card, but it's definitely not in Arena. Fucking fantastic. Now the rest of it, because it does have more text. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller reveals the cards from the top of their library until an artifact or creature is revealed, exiles that card. Those players put the exiled cards onto the battlefield, then shuffle their libraries. Right? So, there's two ways that this can go. This can go either you destroy your own stuff so you can get really good stuff out of your library onto the battlefield. So you can destroy tokens. It's like a transmogrify. So if you have like a Dawn of Hope out, right? Dawn of Hope, make a bunch of tokens, and then you use Indomitable Creativity, and then destroy a couple of your creatures, and then bring out Ulamog, right? You bring out another creature that gives it haste. So you're just swinging in with Ulamog for like a ton of damage. All of a sudden, exiling a bunch of their stuff in their library. You're like, you could do some crazy stuff with it. Obviously, if you do it to yourself, you can destroy a bunch of artifacts you own. Find some other stuff, being like a God Pharaoh. You can destroy treasure tokens, food tokens, and bring out an Immortal Sun, God Pharaoh statue. You do all sorts of weird, cool things like that, right? But what we want to do is we want to destroy their creatures, but we want to have Containment Priest on our board. So Containment Priest is basically anytime a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your opponent's control and wasn't cast, exile that creature instead. So you basically pay X triple red, whatever X is. If they have 4 creatures out, you're paying 7 mana to destroy whatever X creatures, or 4 mana to destroy a big creature, whatever it may be, right? Because, you don't have like an actual board wipe. But being able to destroy target creature is still very, very good in red. And again, it's flexible, so you can do it to theirs, and you can do it to your own stuff. But with Containment Priest, you do it to them. If they decide to, it actually forces them to reveal the cards from the top of their library until an artifact or creature is revealed, exile that card, put it into the battlefield. But since Containment Priest forces them to exile it because it wasn't cast. So you're essentially forcing cards out of their deck by destroying the cards on the battlefield. So it's a combination. Not only are you destroying their creatures on the battlefield, you're ripping their creatures and artifacts out of their deck, or their creatures out of their deck, which is also really funny. So I don't know. I find it a lot funnier than and interesting as it might be. It may not be as clear cut because the way it reads, right? It says, destroy X target artifacts and or creatures. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller reveals cards from the top of their library until an artifact or creature card is revealed and exiles that card. Now, if you destroy 4 creatures this way and they exile the top card of their library, the top 4 cards of their library, and they're all artifacts, will it put those 4 artifacts into play, or will it only look for creatures? That I'm not sure about, because the way it reads is a little bit weird as well. So I would have to take a look at the rulings, or just wait for it to be an arena and then just kind of mess around with it at that point. So that is something I will have to look into. But again, it is very, very interesting. Being able to destroy their creatures and then also rip creatures out of their library seems extremely powerful and very, very good. So this is something I'm very interested in messing around with. Again, this with Containment Priest should be hilarious. And obviously, doing it to your own stuff with tokens, putting in, a creature that gives all your stuff haste, and then running Ulamog or whatever other insane, crazy creature combos that you want to run. It's always fun. You can do that stuff and just swing in for the win. But, why not add insult to injury and just destroy them with slow pain and torture, right? The best way. Card number 33. We have Marionette Master. So, everyone's been telling me, hey, do Marionette Master with Godpharaoh's Gift. It was a standard staple. Like 4 years ago. Everyone played it. It was a great deck. It was awesome. A bunch of people played it. You should totally brew it. Number one, does it sound like a brew if it was in standard? First of all, standard. The fuck? Second of all, it was a staple in standard. A bunch of people played it. 3, a bunch of people played it. 4, it was like a top tier, I guess, and a bunch of people played it. None of this sounds like anything that I would do, period, let alone feature it as a deck on my YouTube channel or anything like that. So, first of all, just don't even ask me to brew it, because it's not even a brew. It's just something fucking stupid, and I'm just not going to do it, right? It's just stupid. So, Marionette Master, 4 colorless, double black for a 1/3 Fabricate 3. So Fabricate 3, basically you choose it to come into the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters or 3 1/1 servo tokens. So we're always going to make this come into the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters, unless we need like 3 other blockers. So basically this will always be a 4/6, but the most important part is the next line of text. Whenever an artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So we're going to take advantage of this to its full form. We're going to use Treasure Map. We're going to use Smothering Tithe. We're going to use fucking anything that makes like food tokens or whatever we can find that makes really cheap artifacts or free artifacts, just to put artifacts on the battlefield. We'll use Rampage of the Clans to destroy all artifacts and enchantments. We will use Hour of Revelation, so once there's 10 or more permanents on the battlefield, it costs 3 mana, and just destroy everything. We use Shatterstorm to destroy every artifact. We use Cleansing Nova to destroy all enchantments and artifacts. So these are all like different colors. We have green, we have white, we have red. So there's just a bunch of things that we can do. There's a lot of possibilities in there. So we're just going to do that, make a bunch of artifacts, blow everything up. So we're just going to make a bunch of artifacts, a bunch of treasure tokens, blow everything up, and deal a fuck ton of damage to the opponent's face. And it's not even damage, they're losing life, which is even better. It's kind of like a black card staple. They're just losing life. They're not even taking damage. So it should be a really, really fun card to mess around with. I don't know how well it's going to work, but it should be really fun. I can't wait to give it a try. So I'm interested. That's all I can say. Card number 152. We have Metallurgic Summonings. Now, this is like a shitty Sharknado. It's 3 double blue. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create an XX colorless construct artifact creature token where X is that spell's converted mana cost. Now, again, this is only for instants and sorceries. So it's like good and bad, depending on what deck you have it in. Now, it does also have a second part of it, which is 3 colorless double blue. Exile it, return all instant and sorcery spells from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only if you control 6 or more artifacts. Now, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to abuse this yet, but I think it's going to have to be in a Yorion deck or closer to a singleton type of deck. I believe it's going to need, obviously since it needs a lot of artifacts, it's either going to have Treasure Map. Again, it seems like a lot of these decks are going to have to utilize Treasure Map. Possibly Smothering Tithe to also help generate those treasure tokens, which are also artifacts. Anything that really makes the servo artifact creature tokens. Those will help as well. But on top of that, we need to make sure that we have valuable spells that we want to actually bring back to our hand. And then it's like, is it all going to be worth it? Is it all going to be worth it? You know, do we want to do, are there good ultimatums that we should use? I was thinking about Eerie Ultimatum, but Eerie Ultimatum really only works for permanents bringing back. So do we want to bring all permanents back as well as bringing all instants and sorceries back? Because with the enchantment, all we have to do is we can cast Eerie Ultimatum to bring that enchantment back. And if we cast Eerie Ultimatum when Metallurgic Summonings is already out, we're creating a 7/7 creature token, which is also nice. So not only do we get to bring it back with Eerie Ultimatum, we can also pay 5 to exile it to bring Eerie Ultimatum back as well. So it's kind of like a back and forth. The thing is that in those cases, you would have to have either you would have to go heavy on the enchantments or heavy on the permanents, but you would need a lot of artifacts, or you would need heavy on the spells and just never be able to activate the actual Metallurgic Summonings. And I don't think that's the best way to go about it. See, I don't know. There's too many interesting things about this, but the fact that it forces you to have 6 or more artifacts makes things a lot more difficult. It almost makes me want to play again treasure maps, and I think even possibly no, it's really interesting. I just thought of it right now. Primal Amulet. Primal Amulet, I think, would be very good with this because you're copying spells, so you do need to cast a bunch of spells, but it's also an artifact, and you can cast... Ooh, yeah, that's a really good idea. So I think this with Primal Amulet would be a very, very good card. And then bringing a bunch of stuff back, that could also be interesting. This is very, very intriguing now. We have a lot of thinking to do about this. And again, with the addition of Creeping Mold, we can just go straight into... Yeah, I mean, we can go Is It if we want to go red. We can go... I mean, we can go just green. We can go blue-white. There's a lot of weird things that we can do. So I'd be very interested to mess around with this. The thing is that this deck I feel is either going to be fun, horrible, like almost 0% win rate, or it'll be surprisingly very good. So I may have to do like 4 or 5 different versions of this deck to actually make it good. But I'm actually really interested to see what I can do with this card now. So Metallurgic Summonings may be a newer pet card of mine for like a week, maybe like a week. So you might see it in quite a few videos coming up at some point in time within the next month or so. So keep an eye on it. Keep an eye. As for last video's comment question of the day, what card does the opponent play that makes you want to hate your life? Yo, what up, YouTube? Yeah, we going here, Strider. Come on. You didn't really think that I was that type of person, did you? Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you were even a little bit entertained by this video, please make sure to let me know down below. And if you have anything that you would like to see next, go ahead and leave that there too. And make sure to check out my live stream 5 days a week, every day except Sunday and Thursday. Stream times down below.